Hello everybody, Lucky Tremendous here, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're not going to be talking about TV shows here. No, my friends. This is now the beginning of a whole new segment for my channel. Something I'd like to call Lucky Talks Motion Pictures. It's a working title. For a few days a week here, I'm going to be discussing several movies over the course of each day. Two, three, maybe four. I'll see how this whole thing is dealing with me if I can get myself to do all this and learn how to do it properly. Firstly, though, I'd like to talk to you about the first film I want to talk about today. Now, the 1990s was a very interesting time in American history. A lot of amazing things happened, a lot of bad things happened, but also a lot of great movies came out during the 90s. I'm sure all you folks born in the 90s will agree with me. But out of the many, many awesome films born in the 90s, released during that time period, one of them, one of the best, I should say, that's still popular 20 years later, is Fight Club, starring Brad Pitt, Edward Norton, and Helena Bonham Carter. And not just them, the film also stars Jared Leto, James Gaddafi. It stars a multitude of great actors telling a awesome novel story. I mean, the film was released over 20 years ago, rated R for multiple reasons. However, it was a box office bomb, but it did still manage to get many positive reviews. Definitely one of those films that became a cult film, an instant classic, right away for multiple reasons. What I'll be doing on this show is basically what I do during Lucky T Talks TV. I'll basically be reviewing the movie summary while also doing a few wisecracks here and there. I'll be discussing the production, the ratings, and any possible awards the film may have won during its lifetime. So, my friends, without further ado, let me start to tell you guys about Fight Night. So, the unnamed narrator, played by Edward Norton, is an automobile recall specialist who is very unfulfilled by his job and his possessions. He finds catharsis by posing as a sufferer of testicular cancer and other afflictions in support groups, curing his ever-growing insomnia. You guys ever see people like that? Guys who want to feel better about themselves so they see people worse off, like people with cancer? Cancer is no laughing matter, folks. Remember that. His bliss is disturbed by another imposter, Marla Singer. The two argue to split which groups they attend. You kind of get the feeling that even though Helena Bonham Carter's Marla is kind of a rundown person, she is still very respectable and presentable, and it's definitely seemed like the narrator is being unreasonable here. On a flight home from one of the narrator's business trips, he meets soap salesman Tyler Durden, played by the awesome Brad Pitt. The narrator returns home to find that his apartment has been destroyed by an explosion. I mean, jeez. Deciding against Marla for help, he calls Tyler and they meet at a bar. Tyler says that the narrator is beholden to consumerism. You guys know what that is? When a guy values possessions more than his own life or his own self-esteem, it's actually quite a real problem. You see, people surround themselves with items to make them feel better when their lives aren't really all that good. In the parking lot of the bar, he asks the narrator to hit him as hard as he can, and then they start to fight. I mean, technically the first fight of Fight Club, and it's actually quite awesome to see the actors really punching each other. The narrator moves into Tyler's house, a large dilapidated house in a real industrial-like rundown area. They have further fights outside the bar each night, which start to attract large crowds of men who are either drunk off their asses or have just come off the street to watch. The fights move to the bar's basement where the men form a fight club, which routinely meets for the men to fight recreationally in order to, get out the stress of their everyday lives. Rule number 1, you do not talk about Fight Club. It's lines like that that just make this film amazing to watch every single time. Marla overdoses on pills and calls the narrator for help, and he ignores her, but Tyler goes to her apartment to save her. The narrator's irritation, Tyler and Marla begin having loud sex in their house right underneath the narrator, and it's one of the definitely funny scenes in the movie. Tyler warns the narrator never to talk to Marla about anything he does, and the narrator blackmails his boss for his company's assets to support Fight Club and quits his job. It's definitely showing that Tyler is having a darker influence on the narrator, who was an average guy with a few problems, to now he's starting to become completely sporadic. Fight Club the fight clubs begin to form all across the country as the weeks and months go by. Tyler recruits members to form a new anti-materialistic and anti-corporate organization called Project Mayhem. It's kind of gotten a little out of control, and he's done this all without the narrator's involvement. Just so you guys know, I'm calling him the narrator because the movie never gives Edward Norton's character a name. It's actually quite amazing, not gonna lie. The group engages in subversive acts of vandalism, violence, increasingly disturbing the narrator to his core. After the narrator complains that Tyler has excluded him, Tyler leaves the house and doesn't look back. And of course, he then realizes that the narrator knows that Tyler caused the explosion at his apartment this entire time. When a member of Project Mayhem is killed by the police during a botched sabotage operation, he was actually a really sweet guy. He was one of my favorite characters in the movie. The narrator tries to halt the project altogether the best he can. He follows a paper trail across the country to cities Tyler has visited, realizing that this project has grown far beyond what he originally thought. In one particular city, a Project Mayhem member greets the narrator, calling him Tyler. Oh my gosh. The narrator calls Marla and discovers that she also thinks he's Tyler. Tyler appears in the narrator's hotel room, and that they realize that there are two personalities inside of the same body. The narrator becomes Tyler when he falls asleep. Oh my god, this is one of the best twist endings in any film I had ever seen. And Fight Club was one of the very first films I saw when I began collecting movies in my house. So, to be a newbie critique and a newer lover of movies, to see a twist like that and not see it coming was amazing. I can't even tell you guys. The narrator blacks out after this, and when he returns to the house, he discovers Tyler's plans to erase debt by destroying buildings that have credit card records in them. He apologizes to Marla and warns her that she is in grave danger, but she is tired of his contradictory behavior and cuts all contact with him. He tries to warn the police, but all the officers are members of the project. It's actually quite disturbing when officers of the law and politicians are part of a terrorist group to destroy the nation. I mean, however, is it actually really all that bad? Think about it. I know it's a bad thing, but just think, if a man walked off to you off the street and said, "Hey, I know you have $40,000 in debt. I can get rid of that debt. Will you help me?" Would you or would you not accept his help? I know I certainly wouldn't because I'm a good person, but I'm pretty sure there are people in the actual world that would agree to something like this. The narrator attempts to disarm the bombs in one of the buildings, but Tyler subdues him from the inside and holds him at gunpoint on the top floor so that the two of them can witness the destruction of all the buildings across the nation. It's actually really amazing to see when you realize that the narrator was hitting himself when he and Tyler were fighting, showing just how bad his mental state had gotten. It's only then when he realizes that he and Tyler are the same exact person, which means he's holding the gun to his head. He fires it into his own mouth, even though the Tyler personality is trying to fight him back. He shoots himself through the cheek, and Tyler collapses and disappears from his mind. Project Mayhem members bring a kidnapped Marla to the top of the building. Holding hands with her, the narrator and Marla watch as the buildings explode around him, collapsing as the detonations destroy cities and buildings all across the country as the movie cuts to black. Wow, my friends. Fight Club is a really awesome movie. It's definitely one of the best films I've ever seen, so much so that I still remember watching it even to this day. The visual effects definitely had that weird 90s feel to it, specifically in the opening title sequence, but it definitely feels reminiscent of the time. The music? Whoa, the music was terrifying. I mean, it was so fitting. Everything in the movie, the music and the effects blended so well together. The filming, like the over-shoulder shots, the film stock. I mean, it was the contrast, colors and everything. You could definitely tell that the people who made this film drew great inspiration from films like American Graffiti and such. The writing and the casting were so well done. I mean, however, though, it's so weird because Brad Pitt was not the first choice to play Tyler. Originally, it was going to be Russell Crowe. I'm actually kind of happy that it wasn't Russell Crowe. I mean, many people were also chosen to be the narrator as well. One instance was going to be Matt Damon or Sean Penn, but then thankfully it went to Edward Norton. Honestly, I don't think anyone else could have played the role as better. Something enough because Marla Singer was definitely not supposed to be Helena Bowen Carter. There was so many other actors that director David Fincher considered. Courtney Love, Winona Ryder, Reese Witherspoon, but thankfully they went with her after her scene in one of her movies a couple years earlier. All in all, Fight Club is a masterpiece of work. One that can never really be replicated, I'm sorry. Not even if they make a remake. Not even if they make a sequel based off the book that became a sequel to it many years later. Honestly, I'd give this film nearly 2 thumbs up. If you guys have not seen Fight Club like me, I would highly recommend it. Fight Club is great, every little bit of it. Next time, my friends, we take a look into the world of filmmaking 10 years after Fight Club was released, as a film directed by the same director, David Fincher. That'll maybe give you guys a clue as to what we're looking up next. But, as always, my friends, I'm Lucky Tremendous, this was Lucky Talks Motion Pictures, and I will see you folks in the next video. Peace!